I'm on a Sadler 26. This is Ella, based in the River Hamble, and we're in Southampton water to take her out and see how this pocket cruiser performs on a fairly light airs day in the Solent. Like many successful boats, the Sadler 26 has quite a long evolution, which started with the folk boat. And David Sadler turned the folk boat into the Contessa 26, which then became the Sadler 25, and eventually the Sadler 26 that we're on today. They've been remarkably successful, and they lend themselves to big offshore adventures or minimalist cruising adventures off the beaten track, and also pottering around, creek crawling and having fun with the family. The Sadler 26 was designed and built in 1982, so just following on from an event which had hugely shocked the sailing community, which was the 1979 Fastnet. And one of the big safety features that they added into this boat was a buoyant core and a foam core. So there's actually enough buoyancy in the hull of this yacht to fill it up with water and for it to still be fairly stable, for people to still be on board and to remain here safely until help arrives. It's a close-celled foam, so it won't absorb water. It improves the stiffness of the boat, and it gives her a really nice, warm, dry, quiet feel down below because the hull is insulated, basically. The downside, of course, is that if there is some water which gets in, it's quite complex, probably quite expensive to repair, and any kind of damage to the outer skin of the hull is going to result in a lengthy time in the yard to sort it. Most of the Sadler 26s were twin keels, but they did have a fin keel option as well, which had a 1.4 metre draft. The bilge keel version, which is what Ella is, has a 1.1 metre draft. There's over a 40% ballast ratio. It's 42% on the fin keel version and 44% on the bilge keel version. So she's really nice and stable, and with that internal or the sort of integral buoyancy of the foam core as well, she feels very stable, very buoyant, and she's really comfortable to sit on. She's much less twitchy than a narrow single-skinned hull of the same vintage might be. She's got a beam of 9 foot 5 inches or 2.75 metres, which is quite beamy for a boat of this size, especially of that era. And the Contessa 26 that she developed from only had a beam of 7 foot 5 inches. But it does mean there's lots of internal volume, room for all your spares, and enough space to stow gear so that it's not all living on the bunks all the time. One of the things I love about this cockpit is how comfortable it is. You can easily fit 4 adults in here. It's narrow enough that I can actually brace my legs across the side if it was really windy. The tiller is only half the length of the cockpit. It doesn't take up the whole thing, so there's room for everybody else to be handling the sheets. We've got a nice deep coaming, so it feels really safe, with a bit of a camber on it as well. There's a bit of space for stowage in these little lockers. We've got pretty light winds out in the Solent today. We've got about 5 knots of true wind from the southeast, and we're just ghosting along at about 3 knots. We've got a big 120% Genoa up, full mainsail, and this boat's actually sailing really nicely for a boat with quite a lot of ballast and quite a heavy boat. She's sailing pretty well in light airs, especially given the fact that she's got twin keels and quite a lot of wetted surface area. A little bit earlier we had slightly more breeze, and we were able to just balance the boat on the sails. Upwind she was doing about 35 degrees apparent, and we completely left the helm. She just sailed herself straight and true. There were some perfect zigzags when we tacked. On the chart plotter the track looked really, really good. We're going to put her through her paces and do a tight turn. We'll turn to starboard, which is going to be the favoured direction with her offset prop and see how tight we can make the circle. So I've gone hard over. She's turning really tightly with a little bit of blast of reverse. And there's a really nice response on the rudder there and on the helm. You can feel that prop wash as it goes straight over the rudder. Really powerful turn. It was probably just over a boat length, so really nice to have that capability in a tight spot. She's really nice and quick and easy to turn. The nice thing about the Sadler 26 is it is a proper little yacht. It's not a big little yacht, it's a little big yacht. So we've got a proper anchor well with plenty of room for all your chain and for the anchor to be stowed in. We've got nice full height guard wires, a twin set, which you don't always get on boats of this size, an upper and a lower, so it feels quite nice and secure. We've got quite a good working area up on the foredeck for coming and hoisting the spinnaker on. And there's also this removable inner forestay for a little bit of extra support for the mast when you're offshore or when the wind picks up. Moving further aft, we've got the coach roof. It's got quite a nice curve to the top of it, which keeps the lines sleek, but also gives that bit of extra height inside. Nice teak handrail running the full length with a really nice curve, just sort of accentuating her lines. And again, there's a nice teak rubbing streak here, which, as well as protecting the hull, just disguises the hull to deck join, which is actually beneath there. The shrouds are terminating on one chain plate, and we've got quite a lot of room to swing outside as we're going down the side decks. It's actually quite comfortable moving up and down the decks here, and because of that beam, there's a nice wide deck just here for people to work on and put fenders on. Again, the narrower yachts of this era don't quite have that much space on deck. The moulded tow rail is quite a nice feature. It means there's no aluminium tow rail with fittings or fixings that are going to need to be rebedded at some point because they're leaking. It's not teak, so it doesn't need to be varnished or replaced when it gets worn out. But the downside of it is that it's only got one point here for drainage, and water does tend to collect in midships, and you tend to get a little bit of green collecting on the side decks there. These stanchion bases are also a modification. They were originally just a socket inside the moulded tow rail, but they did find that that meant if you had a slight parking misdemeanour and the stanchion got bent, it tended to crack the moulding that the socket of the stanchion was in. So a lot of boats have swapped to proper stainless bases. There's a transom hung rudder, which keeps things really simple. There's no rudder bearings or complex manoeuvres that you need to do to drop the rudder and get into that rudder shaft. And the other thing it's got is a full depth skeg, so quite good protection, and also a really nice bit of directional stability, which is part of the reason that the boat tracks so nicely upwind. Down below, we've got a really nice bright space. It's helped by the fact that the interior of the boat has an inner lining, an inner moulding, so there aren't any saggy headlinings that start to look tired with age. In fact, this is all in really good condition. We've got very nice big port lights down the side of the boat. They don't open, but it's a small boat with a big companionway hatch, so there's plenty of ventilation in here. There isn't an overhead hatch, but there is a vent here, which gives that little bit of airflow and also a little bit of extra light. I'm 5'7", and you can see that I've just about got headroom to stand up. But if you're much taller than this, then you're going to be spending quite a lot of time stooped, and that might be one of the reasons for going up to something like the Sadler 29 or the 32. We've got a fairly compact but very functional galley on the starboard side here. We've got everything that you need, so there's actually an old meth stove here, but you could put a full-size oven in if you wanted to. There's a really nice big deep locker here for cold stuff that's been converted into a fridge. Originally it was a cold box, a sink, and lots of storage at the back, bit of storage under the sink. And there's plenty of room elsewhere in the boat to be keeping your stores. So although it's a little bit limited here, you can keep cans and dried goods and things behind the seats. Once you're sitting down, there's more space than you'd think to have several adults on board. You could actually fit a couple of people on this side of the saloon table, 2 people on the other side, and 1 person, or maybe 2 even, on the far side as well. So enough space for a family of 4 to sit around the table and have dinner. And then afterwards, this table folds down and makes a small double bunk in the middle of the saloon here as well. So a really good double use of space. The chart table is fairly minimalist, but there is one. We just have to pull out this shelf above the quarter berth here, and you've got nav equipment that's been mounted on the wall here. So there is space to be doing chart work on the move. It's obviously more of a stand-up desk than a sit-down desk, and when you want to use the bunk as a berth, you push it out the way and it locks into position. So like lots of small spaces, you can have it all, you just can't have it all at the same time. The forward half of the boat is a fairly standard configuration. We've got the heads on this side, quite a nice space actually. There's enough room to move around, a bit of elbow room here, and both the seacocks are readily accessible through the sides of the hull there, where we can see that double skin in action. On this side there's a useful wet locker, and you can see here as well the use of interior mouldings. So this forward berth is all part of that interior mould, which gives that boat extra structural rigidity, the extra strength, the extra flotation in between the 2 different layers, the 2 different skins. Underneath the V-berth there's quite a nice big space for storing sails and kayaks and all your other cruising equipment, and there's a nice bright hatch there for getting things in and out and making it a nice bright space. The Sadler 26 has come a long way from its folk boat roots, but it has kept some of the core values, which are it's pretty to look at, and it also sails really well. It's a real pleasure to sail. She tracks nicely, she's really balanced on the helm, she's quite close-winded, and she's just fun and comfortable to be on board. She's got that lovely high bow with that nice sweep, that bit of sheer line. The stern is a bit square, but I think it's a compromise worth making to have that nice big comfortable cockpit where you can comfortably put 4 or 5 people in. But the most important thing about this boat isn't necessarily what you do with it, but what you could do with it. And there's a feeling that if you wanted to take off and have a big adventure, you could. At the same time, she's small enough to handle for all the in-between bits, for the weekends, for the weeks, for the coastal cruising. She's really, really versatile, and I think she'll suit a lot of people having lots of different adventures. What is it that you liked about her? Why did you choose her out of all the other ones?
Well, she's built to be a seaboat. She's easy to sail single-handed, and we have children who, well, they're now 13 and 10, but at the time were very young, and I wanted a dry boat. I wanted them to enjoy it. I wanted the family to feel safe. The unsinkability factor was quite good to tick the box for the grandparents' approval. And overall, I knew she was a good cruiser because they used to go around for circumnavigations for coastal cruising. And we went for the twin keel or the bilge keel on the basis that we could go creek crawling and have some fun.
Brilliant. And what to date has been the most memorable trip on her? What are the kind of standouts of your ownership, do you think?
Funnily enough, even being on the mooring, on the handle, on a beautiful day, you just can't beat it. It's lovely. As far as cruising with a family, it's a 26-foot boat, so you can't escape the fact it's a small space. About the size of a VW camper van, probably a bit bigger, but you can't get out for a walk.
Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed sailing her. I think she's a fantastic boat, so thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.